obligated. So why should you not wear the talis? You're obligated. Because you can argue back, well, I'm wearing the small one, so I got tzitzis no matter what. So if that's the case, why do we have the talis over the prayer for davening? And that's because when you have the big talis, which wraps you, so then you're really completely connected with Hashem in terms of prayer. What's interesting about that in terms of connecting marriage, let's say, with the mitzvah tzitzis, is that the custom is that if you're Ashkenaz, or even if you're Sephardi for that matter, you get it. You either as Sephardi get a new talit for the marriage, or as Ashkenaz, you just gave your first one. But it's very important that the kala, the bride, is supposed to buy it. That's her. You buy her the ring, she buys you the talis. That's the protocol. That's the custom. And the bride presents the talit to her husband as a gift, as a new stage in life. You're now more mature. You're not just a young boy anymore. You're a married man, and I'm here to prove that you're a married man. And therefore, I give you this sign and badge of being married. Therefore, on Shabbat, when you pray with your talit, our custom is not to fold it after the finishing of the daven. Because if you fold something on Shabbat, then you're preparing for after, unless you have more usage for it. In other words, you're not permitted to do anything on Shabbat that will prepare for Saturday night or Sunday. So if this talit is not going to be used anymore on Shabbat, and I have to instead fold it up for usage, let's say for next week or for tomorrow, whatever it is, I'm not permitted to fold it. But that's called preparation, not preparing Shabbos. Okay, so therefore we don't fold up. We fold up. We fold the talis there for a Saturday night at Havdalah. And the custom is to fold the talis at Havdalah in front of your wife to constantly remind her of her beautiful gift to you. And that way you enhance Shalom Bayit, enhance domestic peace at home. Yes?
What if you have like a talit for Shabbat and then one like they use during the week?
Okay, good. So if you fold up the talit for Shabbat, you fold it up for next week. That's certainly week preparation. You can't do that. So if we just leave it, and then on Saturday night when you fold it up, make sure you do it in front of your wife. And so she's there for Havdalah anyway, and she sees you folding up the talit. She appreciates the fact that you appreciate her gift from way back when you got married. Because we're talking 10 years into your marriage, I understand. And sometimes people after 10 years start forgetting about what it was like in the original days, the romance days and so forth. So you want to rekindle that romance. One of the ways to do it is every Saturday night, fold your talit in front of your wife. Okay. Another very important custom, Sephardic custom, is that they have this new talit. They've been wearing talit since the 13th anyway. They put on the talit, a new talit that the bride buys for him, and they put it on at the chuppah, at the marriage ceremony. You put on the talis, and then the custom is you make the bracha, and you make the bracha of the tzitzit. And by the way, the bracha for the tzitzit, the talit katan, the small tzitzit, versus the larger talit is a different bracha. One is Asher Kiddushanu David son of Al Mitzvah Tzitzit. That's this, right? And then the other one is the Tatei Tzitzit. That's the large one. So the custom is at the Sephardic wedding is that after the chassan gives the ring to the kala, so then what he does is before they read the ketubah, which we're going to get into in a moment, about the ceremony and stuff, is he puts on the talit, makes a bracha. He makes the bracha, so then once he finishes that bracha, so then he wraps himself in the talit, and then you wrap yourself, and then you extend it. And you fold it, you wear the talit, you make the bracha. Actually, the proper method of doing so. So basically,
I'll hold it back the same
you're right, the way, uh-oh, okay. Right. Whoa. Anyway, so the general procedure is that you take this as it is like this, and you hop it over your shoulder. This way you can count and make sure that the tzitzis are kosher. So of course, we all know the numerical value is extremely important because you have to have here 5 knots, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knots on each corner, and close it up there, 8 strings. And then you say a special prayer when you're prepared, when you say a special prayer when you're doing this procedure of checking. When you really have, you're obligated, by the way, by halacha to check. And it's not just just going through the motions. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again. 2, 3. Now go tighter. 8 strings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 8 strings. Everyone knows 8 and 5 is?
5? 8 times 40.
8 plus 5.
Oh,
You're not gonna count that. Do you imagine? You'd probably make an error in if I gave you my taxes and bring you back an extra 20,000. So anyway, so that's it. Now it's the check. We all know that the word tzitzit, tzadik yud tav. You need to know your alphabet. The tzadik is 90. The yud is 10. Another tzadik is 90. Another yud is 10. That's 200. The letter tav is 400. Together, 600. 613 is the mitzvah of tzitzis, which means to tell you that every time you look at the tzitzit, it reminds you that you're 613, that you're obligated in the Taryag, and that the essence of your commitment to Hashem is the full compact story of the mitzvah of the Torah. And so once you do this and you check it out, so then you unravel the talit as follows. Open it up like that. See? So the smallest one over here. You kiss it over here. You kiss it over here. And you make a bracha. And as you make the bracha, really just about here. So this way, you're able to do the wrapping immediately after the bracha is finished. And you then cover your eyes with it. Very important, cover your eyes. And then you wrap it around like this, say another prayer. And then once you do that, then you establish it where it belongs in the right position. Where'd you come from? Snuck in while I wasn't looking. What timing?
It's the only time to enter.
Those of you that are here the first time, this is Baruch. You wouldn't want to miss out on Baruch. And then, of course, you simply, most customs are just go this way and that way, and it's proper. And it's left on the head for the most of the prayer because this way you have a second covering besides your kippah. Other Hasidim wear it this way. They actually wear it just around the arms like that and just wear it like that. So, and then of course the idea of covering the eyes really represents the value of eyes as far as tzitzis is concerned. Because tzitzis, it says, by the way, why didn't I make a bracha? I did. Anybody know why I didn't make the bracha?
Because you're not going to perform the
No, I just did. I just wrapped myself in dollars. I just did it. Why didn't I make the bracha?
You already said it today.
Before you make the
Blah,
bracha,
blah, 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 blah. You want to know why? I tell you why. because you're obligated to put tzitzis on your own garment. It doesn't belong to me. So I can borrow this and not make a bracha. So let's say someone is not wearing his talit because he's Ashkenaz, let's say, and he's called up to the Torah for an honor. So he borrows someone's talit. He doesn't make a bracha on it because the mitzvah of tzitzit is make yourself your tzitzit and your garment, not your garment. So therefore, you do not make a bracha on someone else's garment. But covering the eyes is very important.
If you go to shul and you use the talit in shul, you don't make a bracha?
No. Well, some say you do because you're a member of the shul. If you're a regular in the shul, then you're part of the shul, and that's what then, and you contribute to the shul, then you contribute to some degree to that talit. See that. Therefore, no doubt, you should. That's a possibility of a bracha. But in general, we do not make a bracha. That's why you got to buy your own. And that's the, yeah. No, you can do it any way you want. There's no special answer about that. So,
Wearing talit to shul.
yeah. So again, wearing the talit for the prayers is, of course, because that's a special edition. But the wearing of the tzitzit is every day, all day. So the rabbi's right. Mr. Brewer writes it. The Chofetz Chaim brings it down. Whoever does not wear tzitzis on a constant basis, he does not walk with the shechina. He does not walk with the shechina. He does not have that protection. So that's a very valuable point to make. Insofar as the bracha is concerned, and that's a very important point to make insofar as the. Now, once again, the value of the tzitzit is the eyes. Yes, I know there's an important mitzvah to put it on. If you make tzitzit, most of the kids, we train kids probably by the time they're just before bar mitzvah, maybe we train how to make it. Take the strings and you learn how to wrap it, and learn how to make the knots, and how many intervals between the knots. Actually, the interval between the knots is 7, 8, 11, and 13. 7, 8, 11, and 13 wraps. 7 between 1 and 2. 8 wraps between 2 and 3. 11 wraps between 3 and 4, and 13 wraps between 4 and 5. The 7, 8, 11, 13, I'm not going to ask you. 7, 8, 11, 13 is a total of 39. 39 is the name, is the words Hashem Echad. Hashem is 46, as you all know. Echad is 13. 20 is 39. When you have those wrappings, you represent 39. Now you also have here the 613, which is like I said, number 13, but you have it on 4 corners. So if you have 4 corners and 8 strings on 4 corners, 8 times 4 equals 32. 32 is the word lamed bet. What's lamed bet? Heart, lead. So that's what should be covering the heart. My grandmother used to call it lab tzedeko, the heart cover. So this is the mitzvah of tzitzis, to make them and to wear them, and also, here's the key, to see them. If you're not putting them under your shirt, you should stick it out this way, you can see them. What's the value of seeing them? So let's quote straight from the Torah. Torah says, Hashem told Moshe, tell the Jewish people to make tzitzis. I'm quoting it straight from the Torah. Extremely powerful, positive mitzvah. And make tzitzis on the corners of your garments, your personal garment, for generations forever. And put on the tzitzis, here's the key, on the corner, 1 string that is blue. Why the bluish? Because the blue reminds you of the ocean. And the ocean reminds you of the sky. And the sky reminds you of Hashem. When you look at that blue thread, you really have this real conscience of Hashem with you. Of course, on the other hand, you say we don't have blue thread today. Why don't we have blue thread today? We lost it through the years, through the persecutions, through the geographical dislocations and movements. We don't have the blue thread anymore. So not having the blue thread anymore, that they mean you still can't stop the tzitzis. You have without the blue thread. Kind of sad that we don't have the blue thread, but at least we have the tzitzis. The blue thread is supposed to be able to remind you again of Hashem's presence, but it doesn't go directly to Hashem. It's got to go through steps. Because your own personal development in relation to Hashem is step, it goes by steps gradually. First, you think of the blues, then you think of the ocean, then you think of the sky, then you think of Hashem. It's gradual how you really build a relationship, so to speak. It doesn't happen like that overnight. In any event, then it says, you should have the tzitzit, and there's the bottom line of what you do with the tzitzit, what you're wearing them, what's the line. We will eat them, Oto, see them. Because why? Because if you see them, you remember all the mitzvahs of God. And then you will do them. How will you remember them? You will take a look over here. You will see what is representative of the 613. And at that point, you will remember your obligations to Hashem. And in so doing, you will be able to do and remember all of your obligations, become a 613 in reaffirmation of your pledge. But then it says something else. What about eyes? The eyes have it.
Maybe just turn it off.
Great idea. Turn it off. Turn it off. What can I drink? Is it off? Okay.
Rabbi, so if it's just for a reminder, why can't we still use just the regular blue strings, even though it's not from?
So that is a very interesting question. In fact, it was a question that was asked way back when the Jews were traveling through the desert. And as they were traveling through the desert, they came upon a problem called a man called Korach. And if you followed the reading of the Torah yesterday, you were sure yesterday, right? And you went to the Knesset. And you heard what?
Parsha.
The Parsha. Okay, that was the Parsha Shlach, right? Who could tell me what next week's Parsha is?
Korach.
Korach. Korach the bum. There's other good parts in the Parsha. Korach's a bad guy. Now, I'm not getting into a Parsha of Korach right now, but let me just say one thing. We always teach that when you learn Parsha, you have to look at the end of last week's to understand connecting this week's. Korach asked that same question. And he asked it in the following manner. He said, let's face it, Moshe, he said. If the chelet is so important, why do I need the tzitzit and a string of blue? Well, I make a whole garment out of blue and be done with it. Furthermore, he said, if let's say every room in the house needs a mezuzah, so why bother with a mezuzah on the doorpost? Just buy a whole bunch of Torahs, fill the room with Torahs. I don't need a mezuzah anymore. And if that argument makes sense, Korach says, then why do we need leadership like you? I need one mezuzah for the room, and one string of cheles and tzitzis, and one leader for the people? No. I had all blue, all Torahs, and everybody's holy, and it should be equality. And you shouldn't be the leader at all. So, of course, we have really the festering of the beginnings of communism, equality. So once you have equality, so someone's got to control, and of course, upsets the dictator. That's what you got. That was Korach. Korach's rebellion, which we talk about on Thursday night, is extraordinary in the sense that Moshe Rabbeinu's response for the first time is an active response. Up until now, with all the problems of the spies and other problems, Moshe Rabbeinu did not respond or dignify the response, the accusations against him. He told humility, he was silent. But with Korach, he's going to open his mouth and he's going to tell him off and he's going to curse him. And the curse comes true. We'll all learn about that on Thursday. In any event, the point is that you got to look at it and use your eyes, because here's the second part. Do not. This is a positive, this is a negative mitzvah. Got to remember, never be tempted by your heart or by your eyes. Because I know for a fact, says Hashem, that you're easy prey for that. Every person has a yetzer hara, the inclination to do wrong. Every person has rebelliousness within him. Every person tries to throw the yoke of obligation off, and that's all part of our nature. And in that sense, Hashem says, do not follow those temptations. I know what you're looking at. I know what your heart is desiring. Do not follow. The two factors involved are, the two most specific factors are, with regards to idolatry, which is tempting, and immorality with women and women together, which is tempting. The temptation factor is as follows. One is, of course, very physical, the absolute insatiable desire, which the Torah forbids, and which the Torah says. But if you look, you're going to see a pretty woman, and she's not clothed properly, and everybody's going to be tempted. I'm a big tzaddik, don't bother me, alone. The other temptation is a mental one, your heart. You follow your eyes, it's a problem. Big problem, as we said. Follow your heart, because you hear somebody give you a real good argument against God. Some big shot professor in the university who promotes atheism, or someone gives you a better argument. Some reform rabbi comes up and tells you, yes, we believe in God, but we certainly don't believe the Torah came from heaven. Certainly don't believe the Torah came from Sinai. Certainly don't believe Moshe Rabbeinu. And he brings these powerful arguments. How tempting! Because when he's right, then you can drive on Shabbos, go to the temple, play games, have a good time, have the guitar playing, and fool around on Shabbos in the Reform temple, in the conservative junk house. but do you understand that these temptations are very, very powerful, and they're subtle. They creep into your brain. Someone says to you, "You don't have to keep this mitzvah. That's too strict. That's for the rabbis. You don't have to bother with that as observant. That's extra. That's Hasidic. You're too much extra. Don't be so strict. Don't be so extreme." That's idolatry. It's idolatry, taking you away from the commitment that you make in terms of keeping all the mitzvahs according to all the rules that the Rabbanan and the Gemara set down. Well, we don't have to listen to every part of the Gemara. I remember my father had an argument with a conservative rabbi because they built the temple. When they built this temple, and they put the Torah in there, right? So they didn't put a curtain up. So my father was bothered by that. Why didn't they put a curtain? Well, and my father said, "It's right in the Torah. They built the sanctuary, they put a curtain up." So the rabbi said to my father, "I know it says it in the Torah. We don't have to listen to everything it says, you know." So years later, I met a conservative rabbi, and I said to him, you drive on Shabbos, fire, burning on forbidden labors. The Torah says you can't drive on fire. It says specifically fire. In chapter 35 in the second book, Shmos, those of our Israel who saying you can't burn fire. Well, you don't have to listen to everything. So I said to him, "Tell you what, you have a Torah in your shul?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Well, why don't you take it out? Let's go through it, you and me. Whatever you don't listen to, we'll just cut it out for the sisters." That was out, that was out, that was out, that was out. And now you've got a whole new Torah.
That's funny.
I know. I love my jokes. Anyway, I mean, again, there comes this point where you have really a temptation, and it's a slippery slope. And you break this rule that you kept, and then you break another rule that you kept, And you were keeping it, but we take a little lenient and how it is, and with community members that maybe are a little less than you, and now you try to imitate them, so to speak. That's temptation. What leads you or what keeps you strong away from temptation, whether it's be mental or physical? Yes. The strings. The strings do that. And of course, the woman's participation is like keeping her husband in check with regards to buying him this thing. But since talit, and since it is in fact a garment, it imposes upon women rules about their garments. Noach made a fool of himself after the flood, as you well know, and he got himself drunk. Highly undignified. And he became naked, certainly undignified. And his youngest son came in and said, joke out of it, you're naked. Right now, of course, the rabbis want to teach a deeper meaning. They want to say that actually, when the Chum came in, he actually castrated him, or committed an act of homosexuality. And either way, it was just a very abusive thing to a father. Anyway, he comes out to his brothers, the other two, and he says to the two of them, one is Shem, by the way. And Shem becomes, of course, us, Semites, right? And the other one was Yefet, the father of the European nations. And he says to the two brothers, the old man, he's a crack up goofball, look at him, he's taking, come on, let's take a look. So the two of them pick up a garment. He holds it here, he holds it there, and they bring in the garment to cover their father. Correct? Not to see their father in disgrace. And that teaches you a great lesson, by the way, about honoring parents. Even when you know if your mother or father do something wrong, you know it. They're not stupid. You know, in fact, that the man is naked. Nevertheless, don't look at them and focus. So they walk it backwards. And the Torah then says, as they turn to cover him, they sort of a yoga move, right? They stretch their neck to do this, all in order to avoid seeing him. But they know he's naked. What's the difference? The difference is you should never have a view of your father's humiliation. Why? Because when you view something, it's a whole lot more than you know. I know X, but when I see it. So of course, let's say there's a downtown, there's a murder, some bank robbery or whatever it is. Okay, you read it in newspapers, you feel bad, it's a terrible thing, why do people do such violence? But then they tempted to turn on a TV so that some guy, Channel 4 News reporting live, right? And this way you can see exactly who the victim is, and the guy got killed. And of course, if that's not good enough, then you go to the movies and watch 15 murders in one movie. And the next movie tries to become better, gets an Academy Award, it's got 20 murders. Why do people want to see this? Why do they not want it? Eyes run after these temptations. We all have inherent within us a temptation for violence. We do. But I'm such a sweet guy. I wouldn't hurt a fly. Well, that's not true. I wouldn't hurt a fly. That's why flies I have to. But I wouldn't hurt another person. I wouldn't slug anybody. I love seeing it. Crazy. Because the eyes represent, and really it works together, eyes and heart. The eye sees, and the heart desires what the eye sees. And then, off and out. And then it says, and you will see the mitzvos, remember them, do them. 3 steps. The other 3 steps, don't go after your eyes and your heart and your eyes, because then you'll end up doing that too. Just 3 steps either way, right? It's the initial contact, the internalization of the idea, and the big action. So we understand, talk about it in our world, about domestic violence. How do 2 people He stood on the floor with dreamy eyes about himself, and with such joy and love, and I'm madly in love with you, and so forth and so on. And all of a sudden, maybe a year later, there's domestic violence. Okay, there's arguments to understand. Domestic violence, how do you get that? How do you come to that? Well, because it's within our ability to do, it's within our temptation to do. It could come to that. It doesn't have to, but it could. Which means simply, basically, to stay away from any notion that could enhance the temptation. And therefore, that's where the tzitzis comes in for the man. Man's walking down the street. He sees a woman in her clothes properly. Goes straight in the streets. The woman, for her part, is careful to dress the sleeves, to dress properly, to dress respectful, to understand men are tempted, to understand the nature of how these beings, male and female, are created, and to understand that it's their responsibility to maintain a holy and spiritual environment. Now, to talk about environment simply means that if a man wants to say a bracha, and there's a woman improperly dressed in front of him, he may not say that bracha. So let's say, okay, so davening is easy. The women are behind the mechitza. But being behind the mechitza, by the way, has nothing to do with, it's not completely because of tznius factor. What it's there for is because that's the way it was done in the temple in Yerushalayim. We want our temples to be similar. But it's also there, again, for the tznius factor and for avoiding distraction. Man is saying Kiddush fighting at his table. Here I am at my table, and my wife is dressed properly, according to tradition, my children, my daughters, my grandchildren, granddaughters. And we invite some guests. But the guests aren't religious. They don't know the dress code. You don't. I don't know what to do. Right? I can't say the bracha. I can't say Baruch Yadechon. I can't say the Kiddush. So, of course, we try to avoid things. Closing the eyes doesn't help because we are still standing in front of what we call a nakedness, a woman unclothed, sleeveless is prohibited. You can't say Kiddush in front of a woman that has no sleeves. Can't. So here I am under the chuppah, doing a wedding. We're a couple. Now, only once in my career that I have a problem of a woman who didn't dress properly under the chuppah. And she really was a wacko job because she was told before you. And it was bad. I mean, it was bad. Bad. Anyway. But then it got worse. I was doing the chuppah. It wasn't the kala that was not properly dressed. It was the kala's mother. And the kala's mother's not Jewish. How would she know the difference? So she came in, and I guess it's my fault, my bad. I didn't prepare her in advance. She walked in, cleavage to but in between the cleavage, what's a cross?
It's not acceptable.
And I'm going, this is making me nuts, right? So of course, I had someone go
But
to.
isn't that obvious that it's a Jewish ceremony and that she did that?
A lot of things are
professional
obvious.
process?
A lot of things are obvious in the world. Don't take anything for granted. I learned in my lifetime. I learned take nothing for granted. Right? Anyway, I don't take tomorrow for granted. Anyway, so I had someone tell her that that maybe she should at least move the cross and pick it up a little bit. Anyway, she got real offended. Oh my goodness! Now I'm in real trouble. And so, but I'm just saying that you have these situations which are defined by halacha, by Jewish law, as clearly what's proper. So a young woman is getting married, beautiful, and she has the beautiful white dress, and doesn't come with sleeves. It's obviously unacceptable. So she puts on a sleeve. But it's a real sleeve. So, it's accepted. But then some other lady came up with an ingenuity, a real, how do you rule on this one? She put on some cloth under the see-through. But the cloth was skin color. Can you tell the difference?
No,
Well, if you're looking. Anyway, these are various situations that you want to try to avoid. Obviously, the imperative of a woman's tznius and self-respect and propriety for within the environment she lives in to create a beautiful environment, in fact, is comparable to the man wearing tzitzis. Keeping both parties on a healthy, respectful, and separate level. Torah teaches, they're out to war. And it's in Devarim, it's in the Parshas Kiseitze, towards the end of the last book of the Torah, Kiseitze. And the main people going out to war. And we have to war, and this is your environment, this is your camp, right? This is your community right now. The battalion of the unit of all the fighters, right? And you want to keep this little camp of yours as holy as possible. Says the Torah, "V'yamachanecha kodesh." Okay. So maybe you get up early in the morning before the battle and put on tops and fill and pray to Hashem. That's a good way to start the battle. Hashem should be with you. And as my Rebbe used to say, Zechem L'Bracha, there's no atheists in a foxhole. Everybody screaming out, "Oh God!" Everybody. So at this point, we want to keep this camp holy. And of course, let's say someone has to go to the bathroom. Well, that's certainly, you can't pray in front of a bathroom, or in front of a toilet, or an open bathroom. And you have no bathrooms out there. Not even the outhouses of construction workers. What do? So you go leave the camp. This is very explicitly, mind you, but forgive me being explicit. Pardon me. And you go out to the camp, outside the camp, at least a good distance, maybe 30 feet, 40 feet, whatever it is. And you dig a hole. And then you deposit what you need to deposit. And where you have a little bathroom, whatever it is, number one, number two, whatever it may be. And then you just take the dirt and cover it up again. And this way you maintain the holiness and the godliness of your camp. And it's not being violated by something foul. But then the Torah says the same thing about, and the very same portion says, what happens if a man, one of the soldiers, has a nighttime incident? A nocturnal emission, we call it. Why would that happen? Well, because maybe he left behind his family, his wife. He hasn't been with his wife for 2-3 years, maybe. He's fighting and this and that, and his desire is within the male, this need for whatever, and it happens. That also violates, but maybe bad thoughts here and there, for a woman, for his wife, and those thoughts again aroused a situation which caused the camp holiness to be compromised. So we learn from here how important it is to maintain the level of tznius, of modesty, insofar as the male-female relationship is concerned, not only during prayer, but extended beyond, but definitely during prayer. And that's what it means with the extra talit, the larger talit, during prayer. Because it's prayer that's specifically holy. And that's why the intermingling of male and female is at least minimally restricted by during the davening, so that you can really focus and not be distracted. In any event, this is the mitzvah tzitzis. So now I wanted to just share with you, based upon these levels of modesty and propriety, the issue of how you get married and to live a life that is filled with that kind holiness, that kind of, and I guess what we're trying to achieve holiness is the point that it says here in the Torah, the reason for the tzitzis is this way you can remember all the mitzvahs. We talked about that, the 613, right? As you look at them, and you can be holy to God. You want to achieve holiness with God, because God is holy after all. Holy means special, beyond the norm. You want to be holy, at least minimally, to be able to achieve some connection or relationship. So you got to remember to do all the mitzvahs, and this is to help you do that. To achieve high levels of religiosity. So of course, to be able to do that, you need to be, as we said earlier, prevent yourself from the negative to be able to build and enrich on the positive. And so therefore this positive, right, is going to help us prevent any negativity, which allows us to build on a whole lot more of spirituality, holiness, and so forth, within the marriage and within the davening and so forth. All that we can accomplish together as a husband and a wife, all that we can accomplish is the holiness of Hashem between us, which of course is the creation of a child. Because after all, that's what God did. God created a person. God created a baby. God created all humanity. When we're engaged in that kind of project, we're engaged in godliness, holiness. And of course, that's why women have such an obligation towards family, so that this thing, I shouldn't say thing, this mitzvah of tzitzis is unnecessary for women. Because just being involved with conception, delivery, childbearing, and so forth, certainly is connecting with Hashem on a high, most manifest manner. And certainly, you want to be able to do that through the most holiest manner. So if holiness involves restriction, not looking at other men or other women, except your husband and wife, and it involves the kind of restriction which means you can't even be with your own wife or your own husband for at least nearly half of a month. Because after all, you have the laws of family purity, mikvah and so forth, which is they're built in order to be able to be able to achieve within the couple a sense of relationship that has absolutely nothing to do with real desires, except the desire to please the other. That is a real sexual engagement. And this is achieved again by the mitzvah of tzitzis and the mitzvah of tznius. But as I was saying earlier about the two brothers covering their father Noah, not to see his ridicule and to honor him in some minimal fashion, was the concept that Shem was the one who came up with the idea, and not to make fun of the father, to cover him. So Shem becomes the Semites become Jews, and the Jews are the one that get this mitzvah of tzitzis as a garment, and tznius for the women because of what he did to cover up his father. Whereas the other son, his descendants became highly sexually immoral because of his own immoral behavior with his father. And so when we sense that concept of what we're trying to build within the scope of the male-female relationship, the last thing you want to do or think about is abstinence. No, you don't want to be a priest and not get married. You don't want to be a nun and not get married. That's not what Hashem wants of you. First of all, Hashem wants children off the top. But in addition to that, there's another concept. The concept is that you can take something that's so definitively physical and make it something holy. Even going to the bathroom, you come out. I've talked to non-Jews, they were astounded. We say a bracha if we're going to the bathroom. Yeah, we do. We make it a holy endeavor, as strange as it may sound, because everything is a gift from God. The whole body functions a gift from God, and the bodily function of sex, in which a husband and wife come together to bring a child to the world, should be done, but within the confines and the restrictions of the Torah. And that's why the laws of Nida, family purity, and mikvah play such a large role in our lives. The bottom line of if you wanted to know the big three of a religious Jew defined, Shabbos, kosher, and mikvah. That defines a religious Jew in the most basic, simple form without a whole lot of other enrichments. And so the idea is that the proper development of responsibility is understood within the wedding ceremony as to be contradistinctive to the story of the Rambam. The Rambam brings a story. Very explicit. Our teachings are very explicit. And it says, the Rambam says, it wasn't many years ago before the Torah was given that a man walked down the street and felt an urge. He saw a woman and he said to her, how much for tonight? She'd say, such and such, I have to make a living. Okay, I'm a man of honor. I will give you what you need, what you want, and spend the night with you. And then I would go. Goodbye. Says the Rambam, that was protocol before the giving of the Torah. Says the Rambam, now the Torah came and changed everything. And what did the Torah say? The Torah said, you walk down the street, you see this woman, and you're interested in her, you don't pay just for the night. You pay forever. And you get married. And in getting married, the majority of the wedding ceremony in Judaism is very legal. For a starter, we need a contract. The contract in itself of the Ketubah is of extreme importance in terms of the sense of responsibility involved. The responsibility of the husband to a wife is so outlined and so detailed in the Ketubah, food, clothing, shelter, relations, and kindness, and so forth, that it goes on beyond that to the extent where there's an obligation beyond the marriage after 120 years, or God forbid, there's a divorce. And there's still an obligation. Well, guess what? We came up with alimony. The government copied us. We came up with the idea. Woman can't be just discarded at will. To the contrary, no responsibility. And if it didn't work out, no matter whose fault it is, you got to take care of it. And that's the responsibility the Torah teaches through the Ketubah. Once a Ketubah is written and presented by the Chatan to the Kala and under the Chuppah, the Kala is reminded she must keep it in her possession for the rest of her life. If heaven forbid it is lost, even though you are legally married, you may not live together. And I got a call a few weeks ago from a couple, 10:30 at night.
Wow.
So I said, you can do two things. You can come to me and find someone else. We can come two witnesses. I'll write you a new contract. Or you can rent a hotel room for the night. But you ain't staying in. Because that's the law. You can't live with your husband without maintaining the whereabouts of that ketubah at all times. So now at the ceremony itself, the ketubah is read. The reading of the ketubah itself, particularly with the Sephardim, it's very entertaining because the rabbi usually sings it with a nice tune and stuff. But in fact, the actual reading of it is not understood by anybody. There's only two words that you understand in the ketubah. The whole crowd is sitting there listening to all the talking, saying over the ketubah in Aramaic. Blah 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 blah. No Aramaic. Not in Hebrew. It's the ancient Talmudic tongue of Bavel of Iraq, right? And they're saying it over. And what are the only two words that you understand that are in English in that document? The date. No, the date's in Hebrew, but that's good. That's good. Los Angeles, California. Or if it's New York or whatever. That's what you understand. And people are kind of, a lot of non-religious people that are not really familiar find it fascinating. They would listen to this guy say all these Aramaic words and say, Los Angeles, California. I think that's very cute. And the whole idea of this ketubah is read simply to make an interlude between the two factors of the wedding. Factor one, factor two. Factor one is the commitment of acquisition. A man is acquiring for himself a wife. He acquires the full responsibility for care, for maintenance, and for support. And for all is becoming the responsibility in high fashion of a Jewish husband. And so it says in the document. In order to make this document legal, however, he's got to make a king. He's got to make an acquisition. And so he makes the acquisition by giving the woman something of value. Today it's become fashionable to give a ring. Why a ring? Some say because it's symbolic of a circle, which is a never-ending eternal relationship up until the time of the world to come, unless it's God been broken by divorce. And so this idea of giving of something of value must have two rules. Number one, it must be the husband's purchase, which means that he cannot give it to the woman, to the bride, before the actual ceremony. He must buy it on his own. And if you want to make sure that it goes to the finger size of the woman, you just get her size and tell it to the jeweler. The actual finger that is used is we teach this oftentimes, is the extension of the index finger of the right hand. And in order sometimes for a woman to remember that, maybe under the chuppah she might forget or whatever. So when I'm doing a wedding, I simply tell her, please point to the man you want to marry. And so this way I get the finger out there. Once that finger is out there, the responsibility of the husband is to present the ring, but he can't present the ring without a statement, because otherwise it's a gift. A gift means nothing. I need to know what your intentions are. And so he says, anybody? You know, he's practicing. You're practicing this, you know. Not practicing. You're planning. I said, you're planning. Hooray, behold, you are betrothed to me and acquired to me and sanctified and holy to me with this ring, Tabatzu, that Moshe of Israel, as according to the laws of Moshe in Israel. Now, there are a lot of times when the rabbis stay with the bride and groom, and he hasn't practiced this one line. And even if he has, sometimes he gets nervous and he forgets it. So the rabbi's got to give him, has to feed him the word sometimes. So the rabbi says, hooray, he says, hooray, but the one word that the rabbi can't say is Lee. Because if the rabbi says Lee, he's marrying her. Right? So therefore, he better, if you can't remember the whole sentence, at least remember one word, Lee. But then they all tell a story about the poor rabbi that had a stutter. It became really, really difficult when he said, hooray. And the guy went, hooray. And then when he got the Kudeshet, and the poor guy went, Kudeshet, he told him, Anyway, the man should be prepared with that statement. And he should say this statement before he puts the ring on the finger, so that there's an intention already known by the kala what he intends to do. And then she has to agree. And she agrees by taking their finger and bending it. And that's acceptance. And that acceptance means, I wish to be married to you. And in that way, the legal establishment of a wedding is now achieved. So he gives her the ring and says the statement before giving, gives the ring, and she accepts, and you've got a couple that is now officially engaged, not married at all. And in Talmudic times, we'll get there very good events. In Talmudic times, the custom was, after the couple, he made this pronouncement and acquired the wife to himself and gave her the ring. In Talmudic times, the couple would then separate and go to their respective homes and prepare for the wedding. And usually could have even taken as long as 12 months. Nowadays, we don't do that. Why don't we do that nowadays? Because during those 12 months, you're not married, but you're engaged, according to Jewish law, you may not go with anyone else. And if you do that, it's adultery. And if you do want to break up, you'll get a divorce again. And so as a result of that, we now do everything under the chuppah because we don't want to take any chances with promiscuity. So therefore, what we do is we call up the witnesses before the ceremony begins. And these two witnesses have to be Shomer Shabbos kosher witnesses who will verify by virtue of their integrity and what they see that in fact this is, he's giving the ring with proper intention. And after he gives this ring and made his declaration that she accepts, we make a little break. Not a 12-month break, maybe a 12-minute break. And the 12-minute break in the ceremony is to read the ketubah. And the marriage contract that had been previously signed by two witnesses could be the same for the others earlier, in which the husband accepted full responsibility. It is read now in order to demonstrate that this act of giving the ring is backed up by a document. But then the husband has a second responsibility. He takes the document once the rabbi's finished reading it, and in front of the two witnesses, he must present it to the bride. And there, the bride now takes it with the full responsibility that she will never again lose it or relinquish it. And God, it does happen, you need to get another one right away. Just for your own information, if you want to know what it is, a ketubah that needs to be replaced is called, in Hebrew, a ketubah, actually it's Aramaic, the irkasa. A ketubah, the irkasa. So now the ketubah has been read. It's now time, under the chuppah, to get married. The chuppah itself represents marriage, represents a culmination. Beyond the legal engagement, which was taking place with the ring, beyond all that, and reading of the document, we need to infuse into the ceremony a note of religiosity, a note of Hashem, a note of a bracha from Hashem. And so under the chuppah, we will recite 7 brachas, 7 blessings, Sheva brachas. And now, by the way, many of you are familiar with Sheva brachas. We've had a couple of celebrations recently. These Sheva brachas are so significant, referring to the 7 spheres of heaven and the 7 qualities that were expressed on the Count of the Omer. These 7 spheres represent the relationship that starts here and lasts to eternity. Now, the reason for that is because we all know that initially at creation, the soul was created as one. Then Hashem splits the soul, putting half in the female, half in the male, and it becomes their job to find each other through the midst of all the people who go through life meeting, particularly when you get a page to do so. Yes, sir.
I'm really sure that's we translate the word tov to good, but realistically it's complete. And when we say mazal tov, it's basically we are completing the mazal. You finally full, you finally won. Is it?
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the numerical value. That's simple mazal tov.
Right.
Right. So obviously, Ein Tov, you want to have goodness, so you'll bring out, the mazal that should be good, and that's the wishes that we give to the couple. In the meantime, these 7 brachas represent the 7 spheres of an eternal relationship, and we find an amazing story that Avram Avinu comes to bury his wife Sarah. And what does the Torah teach us that? Particularly because he was far away at the time when she passed, and he had to travel all the way from Hebron, from Beersheba to Hebron. But Yitzchak, their son, was already in Hebron. Yitzchak should have taken care of of the burial. Why wait so long? To teach us that you might think that once there's passing, the Goyim say till death do us part, that it's all over. And therefore the husband has no responsibility to take care of his wife's burial and a proper return to heaven. To the contrary, Avram runs back, and the Torah says he cries for her, and the Torah says he eulogizes her, and they call the parsha of her passing and burial the parsha of Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, because she remains eternally alive, and their relationship remains eternally alive. How do we learn that one of the most important ways of establishing a relationship is to give something of value, give that money, give that ring? From Avraham Avinu. Because Avraham Avinu gave money to purchase the cave of Machpelah in Hebron to bury his wife. The giving of money not only ascertains the continuum of the relationship, because they're forever and ever in Shemayim, but it ascertains also the beginning of the relationship, but the giving of the money under the chuppah. The chuppah itself represents the house of Avraham Avinu, in the sense that this is a chuppah, this is a roof, and has four corners, and also connected somewhat to the four corners of the garment of the tzitzit. And that's why the Sfardim wear the talit at the chuppah. And I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but when the Sfardim guy puts the talit on, makes the bracha, he then takes the talit and drapes it over the challah. Oh, not the challah. Not the challah. The challah is bread. Then you put something else over it.
And the challah has a cover too.
The challah to cover too, that's right. Yeah. The value, by the way, of covering also is another value. I didn't mention the importance of what we call in Yiddish badekin, to cover the collar and to establish that she's yours exclusively. So in the Ashkenazi wedding ceremony, there's a big march with the chassan singing and dancing to greet the collar where she's sitting on her throne greeting her guests. At that point, he comes towards her, blesses her, and pulls the veil down, as if to say, now she belongs to me. The Sfardim do it a little differently. The Sfardim do it that when the Kala marches down, she marches down with her parents halfway. The Chassan then comes down, the Chatan comes down to greet her, and at that point, when he greets her on the way up towards the chuppah, he covers her there. These are, of course, the customs that we have during the wedding, and of course, the idea of the Sheva Brachas, the 7 blessings, is something that is also continued on for 7 days. That means the first week, husband and wife are not permitted to go to work. They have to spend time with each other and to rejoice with each other and go on trips or whatever and eat together, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know, tired after a while. Fact of the matter is that you may not sleep well during the 7 days, but you sure eat well. I'll tell you that. Anyway, at the end, every single meal where there was a minyan of 10, and the chassan and kala, the bride and groom are there should be a recital of those 7 blessings. The continuum of the wedding ceremony, which includes concludes with the breaking of the glass. And the breaking of the glass was a recent vintage that was instituted in Talmudic times. Before the Talmud and before the Rabbanan came along, it was never done. And the reason it wasn't done was because, go ahead. And the temple was in existence. No need to break the glass. Why do we break a glass in memory of the destruction of the temple, and particularly at a wedding? Can't be too happy. At the time, even the most joyous moment of my life, personally, I do remember the extended family of my people. My people still living in exile. There still is hatred and anti-Semitism and terrorism. And I have to have that sense of loyalty to share my joy with the rest of the Israel. And so I break the glass. And that breaking represents, hopefully, the last breaking and maybe will in fact hasten the coming of Mashiach. So if that's the case, what's the response of the throng the moment the glass is broken? Say it louder. Mazel tov. Absolutely. And that's the whole idea. The whole idea is that this is, for as sad as it is for that moment, and for the chassan has to recite the prayer, Meshkachech Yerushalayim, I'll never forget Yerushalayim. For those 30 seconds or so that he's thinking in those terms, and everyone is, it has to be followed with optimism, upbeat. And that, of course, is the sense of the joy of the wedding. What is the joy of the wedding? What's the simcha? The simcha is singing and dancing, of course, but the singing and dancing has to focus. It's not for me to dance, or for me to sing, and me to be happy. It's for all of it to be focused on the bride and groom themselves. So everyone is making certain, women is making circles around the women, around the kala, and the men are making circles around the groom, the chassan. And eventually, somewhere in the midst of all the festivities, the chassan and kala sit together on the dance floor, and various men, particularly not women, because it's not tznius, men would go out and do specific dances, all to entertain the bride and groom. And the whole concept of all the dancing, for that matter, is not selfish at all. You don't dance for yourself. You dance in order to entertain the bride and groom. That's your responsibility. Says the Gemara, whoever comes to a wedding and does not entertain the bride and groom, and he ate from the wedding, so it's as if he returned to the ruins of Yerushalayim. So you have to feel that obligation. Your obligation, everyone says to give a gift. Okay, give a gift. But our obligation is to make that night happen for them. And that happens with the work and the activity of all the guests, making it joyous and exciting and filled with the great simcha and the dancing. And that really is the heart of the Jewish simcha and the heart of the Jewish ceremony. We got into this because I wanted you to look at, and I'll just bring your attention to it. I won't do it here because it's late. The mitzvah of getting married, which in your book is mitzvah number, mitzvah number, I can't find it. Anyone help me? What mitzvah is mitzvah getting married? I know what it is. It's 40. No, 43, sorry. You take nothing for granted. Mitzvah number 43. The mitzvah of getting married. Says the Chavetz Chaim, the purpose of the mitzvah is to have children, to fulfill and populate the world, and bring new life, to bring honor to Hashem. As we said last week, you should try to do when you're 18. So Moshe said, nowadays we're not so mature. Most kids at 18 are still sucking their thumb. So therefore, most are anyway. Most of the goyim are. But therefore, it should be to the minimum of the age of 22, because you do have a responsibility of maintaining and supporting the wife. Mitzvah number 44 is the mitzvah of the actual ceremony itself. It's too late to talk about it now, but with this intro of today, I will therefore tempt you to come back next week for the full disclosure and mitzvah number 44. Have a great day. Right. Oh, wait a second, 1 second. Wanted to tell you about tzitzis. There was a great rabbi, passed away recently, Rav Scheinberg. Now, Rav Scheinberg wore 100 pairs of tzitzis every day.
What?
100. So they asked him why he did it. Some say he had it at one time, his daughter was very deathly ill, and he took upon himself a vow that every year of his life he would add another tzitzis to his garments. So this was much older, obviously, and he's lighting the Hanukkah candles, as you can see in the picture. He's wearing 100 pairs of tzitzis, right? Boom, like this. Anyway, you can hardly see his face. So one time, one of the people had come to his home to ask him a question, and he walked in, and the Rebbitzin said, "You can find my husband out on the porch." So he walked down the porch, couldn't find him. Now the porch in Israel is very small. You can't find something that's not there. So he walks back to the Rebbitzin and says, "Rebbitzin, he's not there." She said, "Did you see a heap of laundry over there?" He said, "Yeah, he's under that. He's under that." And he had to go right away. And, "Oh, there you are. This is the mitzvah of tzitzis." Rav Scheinberg somehow or another hopped onto this, and he became the talk of the generation. This passed away no more than 10 years ago. Rav Scheinberg was one of the leaders of the generation, up there with Ramosha and the Rebbe and all that. He was up there with the rest of them. And he was famous for this mitzvah of tzitzis. So unbelievable. And I have, by the way, I have this in my wall, in the office.